So, a warm welcome to the special lecture where we talk about the AI exercise you have done in the context of the lecture Applied Microbiology. So it's about, as I said, it's about the outcome of the AI exercise. We will have some words on it. The lecture is streamed also for the students for the Ukraine. Welcome to our friends from the Ukraine. And we will discuss now what is the outcome of the AI exercise you have done. What actually did you do? So this is the summary of the survey, what you have actually been done. You should generate a 5 to 10 page review on the following topic. Question is whether macrophages are a potential target for tumor therapy, and if so, what therapies have been assessed. And again, we're in microbiology. How does this fit in this context? This was exactly the phrase you were asked to give then a review. You're a second semester student, so you have no idea of the topic. And this is like, it feels like in school, no idea of the topic, no time, let's use the AI. And here, in contrast to the school, you're allowed to. So you're allowed to use the AI, and you should even use the AI of your choice, to generate that review, to look how a review should look like. There are just some things, what I said, that a review has to contain references, and the review has to be 5 to 10 pages and structures. Then the review was uploaded, and there was an assessment where you assessed your own review, where it said it was good, not. There was a survey, larger survey, took an hour, and you also assessed another review. It was a cross-assessment, so the same student you assessed yours. So it is a paired assessment, and the assessment 2 was a week later, where a reference paper was uploaded, and with this reference, based on this reference paper, you have redone the assessment of your own review and of the other review. Overall, that was graded with 10 out of 100 points of the module. The remaining points come from an exam. And grading, as I said, is not based on whether your review is correct or not, as you're not experts. Grading is just based on, for the review part, whether it's complete, whether it adheres to these 5 to 10 pages, whether you have references and so on, whether it's not just bullet points, so this goes into the grading, or whether people have just I have seen a review where people have just copied sections 5 times in order to come up with 5 pages. This, of course, will not give you the points for the review. And the assessment is also graded, and the assessment is, of course, not graded in a way that if you grade the other review as a 4, and I would say this is a 2, that this grading is assessed, your grading, the quality of your grading. But if you say the other review has 15 references, and in reality it's 40 references, this is something which leads to a reduction. So we assess whether your assessment is accurate based on absolute parameter. And now let's have a look on what you learned. And just going back, as the audio was missing, this was the outcome of the first question, where I immediately looked into the audience and asked the people, did you use AI? And most of the heads went either like this, or there was just a smile. Very few heads were kind of saying no. So because this result is correct, C, but it would be surprising to see that. So this is an AI-based, even in a live survey. Last question, AI assistance is again allowed. So 18 votes, things go up. So I can start to read the question. So this is of the last part. The following bacteria infect macrophages and escape into the cytosol as typhi, as typhimurium, as flexneri, M. tuberculosis, or as monocytogenes. 41. Okay, then let's have a look. And this is AI assisted. This makes me very happy. I can tell you in a second why. So, S. typhi, Salmonella typhi, this exists, but this doesn't escape into the cytosol. This is an intracellular bacterium. It's intracellular, but it stays in the phagolysosome. The same is true for Salmonella typhi murium, which is a relative of Salmonella typhi, also stays in the cytosol. Shigella flexneri, in contrast, is related to Salmonella, by the way, and this escapes actually in the cytosol, so this is the correct response. So this is C. D is Mycobacterium tuberculosis, M. tuberculosis, M. tuberculosis. This is a bacterium which actually stays in the phagolysosome, blocks it in an earlier stage, and so therefore not in the lysosome. And E is S. monocytogenes, and the majority says this is the bacterium escaping in the cytosol. The little problem is it is not S. monocytogenes, it's L. Listeria monocytogenes. There is no bacterium called S. monocytogenes. A Listeria monocytogenes would escape into the cytosol, but an S. monocytogenes doesn't exist, and a bacterium which doesn't exist doesn't escape. So this is wrong. This is interesting, just to see that. I assume that not all of you have used AI. Some of you have remembered that there was something about this Listeria monocytogenes even in your review. But this is also how AI works, how AI's large language models works. They're usually very kind of, if you make a typo, usually it's not a problem, because usually they say, this is a typo. In this case, they also most likely consider the AI knows, in a way, if you say AI knows something, the AI knows that it's Listeria monocytogenes, and it thinks that you as a student, of course, you just typed in S. monocytogenes, but this was your wrong error, a little error. But in this case, it makes the response incorrect. Now, let's go back to the slides. We have now seen that the knowledge you have built up with this exercise is moderate at most. This is hopefully not surprising for you. Yeah? So if you just use AI, the AI plots your review. This makes you look smart, but it doesn't make you smart. And now the camera moves to you. Now I wanna hear your opinion.
I'd say there wasn't too much effort put into it. It was, for me at least, it was just one sort of prompt, and out it comes.
What were your feelings when you have seen your own review?
Wow.
Wow. I am so smart. It sounds smart, or look like good job. Well, good job. You say, hey, 2 prompts and look. And this is, of course, obviously, this is the danger that this sounds so smart. Yeah, without any effort, you can get out things from an AI which sounds smart. These are language models. So the principle of language models is that they are designed on sounding smart, because that's what they have learned. So what was your perception when you had the reference paper?
I think he just realized that it sounds smart, but it's actually saying a lot of nonsense.
Was it wrong necessarily?
For me, I don't think it was wrong. But for example, references, like it faked a lot of references. So it did give correct details, but it did not cover everything. The only thing that it faked was the references.
Yeah. So it's not the point that the information in the review were really incorrect. So sometimes they were maybe fishy, but really incorrect is rare. But for the references, we will see that later on if we look at the data, for the references that was almost common that references were faked. So things are missing, and also the reviews itself, the papers which are in the review are the most important thing. So the references in your review. It's not just an AI gives you often a very good explanation about a topic, but a review paper is written for experts in the field. They know about the topic, but they want to know what is actually being published, and they also want to know how this fits in the context. Now let's just look on the data, and this is just first to kind of compile things. The baseline figures, so I asked you, these were not mandatory fields, so gender and origin was not mandatory. Most of you have crossed it anyhow, so we have mostly female students, and this is true for all the origins we have asked for, most of you Asia, but we have also Europe, Africa, and others. And this is just the figures. In total, 56 students participated. Of these 56 students, 51 did both assessments, 49 evaluated the correctly assigned student. And it's for the evaluation, the good thing is that you could do a pairwise checking. So if you evaluate grade the work B as very good, you can compare that with a self-assessment and also go in the other direction. However, in the analysis, I didn't do that. Yeah? So the pairwise association was not used for the data analysis. Now we look at the data. So I asked at the beginning, how would you judge your competence in AI? And so this is at 3.0, you say, oh, yeah, well, AI. Huh? So we have seen that. First question, your AI competence cannot be so bad if you can in real time generate a good response. So this is not too bad. But what is interesting is I would have expected, so honestly also my expectations sometimes are in conflict with reality. Usually or very often, male students feel that they're quite better in everything, by the way, including AI. And interestingly, that's not the case here. You see that there is hardly any difference with respect to female or male students. These are just two students who have not specified their gender, so therefore this bar is certainly not representative. What I also asked is whether you have a paid subscription or not. And you see that the people with a paid subscription have a tendency to consider their competence as a bit higher. You pay for your subscription, therefore you should feel better. Yeah? But it's interesting that this difference is not huge. This is a very subtle difference, and of course not significant. So if there is a significant difference, I would tell you there is no significant difference here. Now we come to the more interesting thing, grading. And the grading here on the left side, you see these are the grades you gave to your own work before and after seeing the reference paper. And this is also interesting as a function of subscription status. Yeah? So interestingly, the people who have a paid subscription are maybe a bit more confident to what they have written, but it's tiny, not significant, of course, tiny. But interesting is, after they have seen the reference paper, they say, yeah, don't matter, this was good. Yeah, this was good. Reference, yeah, but look, it's all included. I paid for this damn subscription. Yeah? In contrast, the people without a subscription status, pre-reference, they said, yeah, a tiny little bit worse, but it's not really relevant. So 18 people, by the way, had a subscription. The remaining students had no paid subscription or had said that they have a subscription. And post-reference, there is a significant decrease in their own evaluation. Could we say that a subscription, because at the end the reference thing counts, yeah? The right thing counts, not the left thing. Would we say that the subscription in this case, it's a good idea?
Yes.
Yeah, looks at least based on this data, looks fair, because we say, yeah, of course, it's not a 1.0, but this is not something you would expect. But you would say, look, it didn't change much, even with a reference paper. This is good. However, you see, I have some space left on the right side. And this is the peer evaluation, so the evaluation of the other student. Here, the question is, you have evaluated the other student. Of course, you don't know whether this other student has a subscription or not. But based on the survey, I know whether this is a subscription. So the analysis is then whether not you as an evaluator, but whether the other AI has been generated using a subscription. And this is the evaluation here. And if it has been generated by a subscription, it is graded quite good, pre-reference. It's better than a 2.0. And it's not significant, but the tendency is clear. So it looks like a subscription makes the review even look better. And this would kind of be in line with the left part. However, the drop is similar. Post-reference, you see, you end up with very high numbers, and it's only the difference is 0.2. So of course it's not significant, and this means that it doesn't help too much. So what can we learn here? Well, I would summarize it in a way. A subscription makes you feel better with respect to your output. It is not better, but it makes you feel better. Now the AI model usage, this is not, I also analyzed whether this will come. So what AI models did you use? Most of you used, so the left chart shows most of you used ChatGPT. Then the next is Claude, Gemini, and Perplexity, and so on are less. Interestingly is the distribution of subscribe models and not. So you see that if you, on the right side, free accounts are the blue bars, and the paid subscription are the orange bars. So you see that if you have a subscription, most of you will also have ChatGPT. But for Claude, interestingly, most of you use the free model. And it's the free model, it's just better than for ChatGPT or Gemini?
For me, the reason why I don't have Cloud in like the paid version is because it's limited compared to other engines. So you have a limited tokens that you can use per day, and ChatGPT and Gemini does not have that.
Okay, so the point is a technical problem that it's not the quality, but you have these, you can only use kind of 1,000 API request points, and then it is reduced. Now this is the influence, this chart depicts the influence of the AI model use on the evaluation. So first the self-evaluation, and then the evaluation by the other student, and then the evaluation by the other student based on the reference paper. And also here, first of all, I have to say the differences are not significant in any case. But it's nevertheless interesting to see. If you look at ChatGPT, I would say, despite the fact that many of you had a subscription for ChatGPT, yeah, the output of ChatGPT, despite the fact that it's not significant, the difference between before and after reference paper is always significant, by the way. But nevertheless, we might want to compare the different models. So you see, at the own evaluation, the best evaluation is with the Perplexity, which is, I think, 6 or 7 students. That's the problem with the significance, that, of course, then the group size gets smaller, and then the significance gets smaller. The Gemini people were kind of very skeptical, but the Gemini evaluation by the other students, so a paper which has been drafted by Gemini, was considered as better than ChatGPT, despite that the own evaluations were more critical. And this is even more true if you look after the reference. There, Perplexity did a good job. Yeah? Perplexity was better, way better than ChatGPT. Again, significance hard to generate because it's just n equals 6. So, but the tendency here is quite clear. Now, there was the question, material uploaded. So you were asked whether you have uploaded material to the AI. for generating this draft. For example, the description of the task or whatsoever. And also here, interesting, pre-reference, post-reference, the people who have uploaded material said at the beginning, yeah, it was not so perfect, but after the reference they said, it's still not so perfect, but it's also not so bad. The people who did not upload a reference were skeptical, said at the very beginning, yeah, good job. And after the reference, okay, maybe not such a good job. But it looked like that the quality with the uploaded material is better because there is not such a change if the reference is there. So this helped. Yeah? And by the way, what I realized in this, and it's always the same. If you set up such an exercise, of course you don't know what people do. Uploaded material, I thought that people upload references, but I think most of you just have uploaded the complete task. And this is, of course, a problem for me. Why? Because my name is on this task. It's not that I am afraid of Google, OpenAI or so knowing my name. They know it anyhow. But the problem is, of course, the name can then bias the outcome. And I was in fear that I have a problem then with the outcome for the people who have uploaded it. The good news is, no, but it could have been. However, we could look again at what is the peer review, so your peer, and you see that there is no effect at all. So, and this is interesting because people usually think that the quality is better, and you're also told the quality is better if you give the AI additional references. But if you see the peer evaluation of the student who doesn't know whether you have uploaded things or not, it makes not any difference whether you have uploaded something or not. What about the influence of the role of the self-assignment? So like the typical what you also said, usually you're set if you prompt, say, I am a student in the second semester, or behave like a professor and you're a professor in infection biology and you're an expert in this or that field, and so on. So this is usually what is said. So this is the good prompting practice in order to tell the AI what you are and kind of what are the expectations. Yeah? So assign a role. And here we have a statistical significant differences because therefore I have put the star between the internal groups. Also, pre-post is always significant, but this is not something which is relevant here. But you see also here, if you assign a role, the people think that what they have drafted is significantly better than for the people who did not assign a role. Post-reference, you see that the difference is still there, but it's smaller. The naked truth is, if another one sees your paper, it doesn't matter at all. And here it's really, it doesn't matter at all whether you have assigned a role or not. This also is for me surprising, because I thought that the results might be better. Now we come to something different. I asked you for the prompt count. So how many prompts did you use for your assessment? And the problem is 15 to 30, there are less people. So also here, the significance is smaller. 5 and 5 to 15, these were kind of 20 around students in both groups. So that's a small difference. And this seems to be, what you would expect, maybe also the more prompt, the better is your response. And this holds true also after the review. And this is interesting because before you have seen the reference paper, it doesn't matter for the peer reviewer whether you have reprompted or not. But interesting is post-reference, so the quality, the real quality, seems to be better. It's not significant, but it's half a point, so half a grade point. So this is almost significant. So this tendency is interesting, at least. And now the point is there is a correlation between the subscription status and the prompt counts. So if you're a free user, it is likely that you prompt also just sparsely. Yeah? So the green bar is the free user. So 60% have 5 prompts or less. Only 35% used more than 5 prompts. It's the contrary if you pay for your subscription. So this means if you pay for it, you put also more effort in the prompting. This is interesting. Interesting is that they don't see themselves as more experienced, but they use it experienced. And again, the more prompts you use, the better the results are. Of course, you could also do now an analysis and dissect this 5 to 15 with paid and not paid subscription. But this makes no sense because then the numbers get so small that it's just random what you will see. Now, just some titles I have seen, and also one of, I would say, the key references, Cassia et al. Murlite-targeted immunotherapies, the next frontier in Nature Reviews drug discovery. Sounds good, but they're all fake. None of them exists. Yeah, so this is the outcome. If you look at the number of hallucinations based on the model, and you see that looks like Claude makes up more than ChatGPT, but again, it's not significant, but it looks like, yeah. So Gemini might be a bit better, but again, the numbers then get smaller of the students, so therefore these data is only not significant, but it looks at least that ChatGPT is in part a bit better. And now we come to the section. So this is after the reference paper. So we had section 1, which was kind of macrophages in general, and section 2 is, what about microbiology? And this is something you have only really seen and graded after the reference paper. And you see that if you look at the grades, which were section specific on the right, then you see that macrophages as a target in general was quite well done. This is also, an AI has seen a lot about that. But the bacterial tumor therapy grading was way worse, significantly worse. Yeah? Because that was not really contained. There was some, BCG might have been there, but the field in the completeness, not at all. And this is even more if you look at the subsections here. So if you look at macrophage as therapeutic target, oh, these are in German, by the way. I see right now that the charts are in German. So left is macrophage as a therapeutical target, whether elements are there. You have already said at the beginning the problem was that the historical data often was missing, but most of the reviews had clinical data, but many of them had not the non-clinical data, which should be also at least in parts included. Depletion reprogramming was almost always, and CAR-M therapy, which is now very en vogue because it's new, is included in the majority. It gets different if you look at the bacterial section. So that Coli was inventing that was very low. BCG was in 25%, that's not too bad. However, this is still very small. And the last paper by Gallenbacher was contained by 2%, and I checked it, and I didn't see the paper. So despite the fact that the person said, yeah, the paper is inside. Now, these are not made-up papers. These are real papers referred to. For example, some of your reviews had this paper, cancer immunotherapy using Listeria monocytogenes, yeah, and Listeria virulence factors by the group of Yvonne Patterson. And this sounds like, yeah, this is macrophage. Yeah. The problem is, if you're not an expert, you don't see that this has nothing to do with a macrophage targeted therapy in the sense that you want to reprogram or deplete macrophages. This is a vaccine. Later on, people have seen that, oh yeah, this might also reprogram macrophages, but as an expert, you would say, I'm skeptical because the therapies have been developed a different way. However, this paper was not included in any of your reviews. And this is a dramatic problem for me, because that's my paper. So you sit in the course of Professor Fensterle, who did a milestone paper in 2010 on macrophages, because it was the first paper where we targeted macrophages with bacteria, where we wanted to target macrophages with bacteria, and where we have showed that this works if we deplete that. All other papers came later, and not one single student here had an AI which included that. Even the students, and that's what I said that I was a bit afraid, because students who upload the description, where my name is on the description, I think that there the AI might have kind of connected that, but even then this was not the case. So you see that as an expert in bacterial tumor therapy, macrophages targeted tumor therapy, you would say all of your reviews in this part are useless. How could you know that? If you're not an expert, you couldn't. That's the problem. And you can also not judge, if you see the review, whether everything is included or not. You cannot. You have to know that. You have to be an expert. So I would say the references are the Achilles heel at present. So one thing is that it makes up references. If you have a made-up reference in a review you submit, and some people find and make up references, this will be the end of your career. Full stop. You will drive taxi. However, this is status 2026. So there are dedicated AI models, SciSpace as an example, which are based on publications. So you can you can also force an AI then to cross-check references and so on. So for sure, if these are then AI models which are more tailored for science, where references are of more relevance, because ChatGPT is not primarily written or designed for a scientist. The same is true for Gemini. So therefore, treating references is not their priority. So I'm quite sure that this problem in future versions, especially of scientific AI models, will be overcome. Now, wrongly assigned references. Wrongly assigned references is, for example, if you say this Ivan Patterson reference is showing macrophage targeting. So Patterson was pioneering the field with targeting macrophages. Yvonne Patterson will be happy, she will employ you. But everyone else, including me, not. Because this is not correct. The more specialized the field, the more likely it is that this happens. So if it's, as long as you're in this generic M1, M2, it's unlikely that papers are wrongly assigned. But as soon as it's more getting special, this microbial targeting, it's more likely because there are less publications. If you have no idea of the topic, you will not be able to see it. You can also, of course, you can ask the AI, but you have to know what to ask in this case. So if you don't know what to ask the AI, you will not be able to identify that. And this will not be solved also in future version, I'm sure. Yeah? So the quality will be better if it's all paper-based, but there are papers which sound like that they're in the topic, but they aren't. And this risk persists. Finally, I would say the most problematic thing is, again, none of you had the Fensterle paper. But again, you see a review, of course, you want to have this originator paper you want to see. It's if a person has originated a field and this one is not referenced in a review, this person will get angry. So knowledge, does AI prompting make you a specialist in bacterial tumor therapy? We checked that. And obviously the response here is no. Does AI help you to learn to become a specialist in bacterial tumor therapy and other things to be learned? Does AI help you if you're already a specialist? And I can say, oh yes, it does. This is the data, what comes from your reviews. You'll see it's data. Usually, I would have to analyze that with R or a similar program, but this has all to be programmed, the analytics of the data. The table you see is already 10 hours work. because you need to so-called data cleaning. So I kind of eliminate wrongly assigned numbers at the beginning. Some of you assigned the wrong ID number and so on. So I had all to do that by hand. This takes hours. But the data analysis, this I did with Gemini, paid subscription. Yeah? So this is with Gemini. And what I do is, you see, this is as an example of the analysis on the AI models. This was all done with Gemini. And what Gemini does, Gemini generates a Python code for analyzing the data. And you can, of course, check then the Python code whether the analysis is accurate. And analyzes, for example, analyze the influence of, or the grading based on whether the other student has used, has uploaded references or not. Even in R, this is a nightmare. You will have to program that. It takes 2 hours to program that. This works by hand. Now you can, on the fly, ask Gemini, just do it. I can later on check the Python code, whether the Python code is correct. Because it's not an hallucination of the model, the data. It's the output of the Python code. That's cool. And this is at least the level of a PhD, this analysis. So this makes you way more effective. I've done that analysis last week. Yeah? You don't do that usually in a week. Honestly, I did not yet check the code. So for publishing and so on, I would have to do it. But I checked it sometimes for consistency. You have seen the results of the work. You have seen that also some of the results were also surprising for me. Some were not surprising. But the outcome is, even if the AI makes you look as an expert, you are not. And the outcome is, it's still a long way. And that's the reason why I do it now. I was in the second semester. Because you're in the second semester. Not much have been lost up to now. Yeah? So you're young. If your career was up to now just based on AI, it doesn't matter. You can restart. The good news is, there are still jobs. If you study taxation and law, I would stand here and say in 10 years, there are 0 jobs. So better to learn driving taxi right now. So this is the good news at the end. You don't need to learn driving taxis. You still have the option of learning bioengineering, but you have to learn it. You need to learn it. That's the end for today. Thanks a lot for your attention. Looking forward to seeing you. Bye.